Morena Fano. My name is Renu, and full name Renu Sisodia. I come from India. My entire family lives in India. I live in Palmerston North with my beautiful 8 years old daughter and husband, he's also good looking. Yeah. And I work as a kayako on bicultural social work degree, and my team members are here, and they are really supportive. That's why I could do this project. So today I'm presenting my PhD project. Oh, did I do the slide? Yes, it's there. And I did it from AUT, and the title was Creating a Space for Tribal Saharia Youth to Improve Access to Safe Water in Rural Rajasthan, India. Oh, that was a long title. Why I got interested in this topic, because am I not? I'm audible, right? Yeah. Yep. Okay, yeah, I'll use it. Thank you. So why I got interested in this topic, first reason is my father. He spent his entire life in building rainwater harvesting structure in rural India, especially in Rajasthan. And the second reason was, like, when I was, after doing my bachelor's and master's in social work, I was working with indigenous community in rural India, and I wanted to learn more and explore more, especially to know the struggle. And when it comes to water, the passion comes from, like, what the work that my father have done. Okay, moving forward. So why in rural Rajasthan? I come from Rajasthan, born and raised in Rajasthan. Rajasthan is one of the drought-prone area. It has, like, water scarcity. It's like semi-arid desert zone, so you can understand that water is a main problem there. So that was the reason I chose Rajasthan. Rajasthan is kind of like around like 10.5% of the geographical area, whereas just like 1.2% of water resources. So like you can see why there is a lot of water scarcity. And we are here, and that's India. And in India there is a Rajasthan, which is the west part. Okay, quickly. I'll just move on. Why Saharia community? Because Saharia community is one of the indigenous most marginalized community, and it is also considered as a particularly vulnerable tribe in Rajasthan. They do not have access to resources. In India, there is a caste system. I will quickly explain. When it comes to caste system, you can see like Brahmins, which are like priests. They are the topmost level. Then comes the warrior royal families, Kshatriyas. Then comes the business class, in easy words, then comes the labor. And where does Saharia comes here. They are not even part of the caste system. They are outcasts. So they are considered as still, like, untouchability is illegal, but they are still considered as untouchable. So when they try to access to water resources, which are like built by so-called upper caste people, I'm also part of that, they are discriminated. They face a lot of abuse, like verbal abuse, physical abuse, women and children sexual abuse too. So that was the reason, like, and in India they are like different, like they face different kind of social exclusion based on like institutions. Like caste system is one of the institution, and when it comes to tribal community, they live in remote areas, they have very low access to resources, or like they are not considered as part of so-called mainstream society, so they also face discrimination in different sectors. Okay, now moving my boring part, meteorology. I'll try to make it interesting. So as you know, this is my PhD project. So I decided to choose critical paradigm. Why critical paradigm? Because I could then choose critical theory, anti-oppressive approach, reflexivity, subaltern theory. And critical theory, anti-oppressive approach basically helps you to understand oppressive structure and challenge those structure. Subaltern theory reminded me of, like, sometimes subaltern communities like Saharia community are so marginalized that purposely their voices are not heard, or it considered as noise, or in so-called main discourse like academia, their voices are considered as utterance or noise, and their voices are not heard. So, and subaltern theory, especially Spivak, reminds you, like, if you are in that, like, for example, I'm a researcher in academia field, it's my responsibility. I'm not doing some cool thing. It's my responsibility to create that space where their voices can be heard. And it reminded my privilege. Reflexivity really helped me in, like, reminding what are my opinion, what are my feelings, like my feelings behind feeling. And I also use participants' reflexivity, so like there is a difference, their opinion, their voices, their expression, their stories. So like there was a balance. So I could like, always I was like, okay, no, this is my opinion and that's their opinion. So that's why reflexivity really helped me. My methodology was like participatory action research. That was the whole reason I have to go through all this, because I wanted to work with them. I want participatory action research creates that space where you can collaborate with your participants. You are not working on them, you're working with them. They're part of the project. My data collection was focus group, like methods were focus group discussion, resource mapping, transit walk, participatory video analysis like I did with my participants. So it was participatory data analysis, and output was exegesis and film, which I'm going to explain later on. Okay, yeah, this is interesting, but pictures, no more words. Participant, you can see the first picture is focus group discussion with my participants. Second one is a picture of a resource mapping where they're trying to locate like where is the river, where the water stream, where are the hand pumps, which pumps are working, which are not working. This is a transit walk where like we went to their existing water resources. Yeah, you can see there is no tap. No, there is no tap. This is a river. Yeah. This is a river, and we were like visiting what are the situation of those water resources, and I did it in 3 different villages, so there were different participants. Then there was also a participatory video, so you can see I didn't have a fancy some kind of videos or something, but I had a mobile, so we used mobile for creating those videos. And later on what happened, I will explain you, that's a surprise. Yeah, so that was a data collection method. But I'm not going to discuss all the themes, but some of the themes which we recognized during the field was definitely like women and children has to walk very long distances, and sometimes it's very unsafe for them. So when we say safe water, it's not only uncontaminated or like safe clean water. For them, it was more of safe journey to access that water. So when I was asking women like what safe water means to you, they said like, oh, we face so much of abuse, like every day, like when they try to access the well which is owned by so-called upper caste person, like they have to face verbal abuse, there were incidents of sexual abuse, physical abuse. So like safe water, not only clean water, but safe access to water. They have to spend around, like, depending on how many rounds they're doing, but from 2 hours to 7 hours in just collecting water. Imagine we can just open the tap and have water, but it's their journey. You can see children collecting water, which also has impact on their education and health, because most of their time they're spending in this. And then, again, they do not fit in so-called mainstream employment because they're busy doing this. They do not have time to go for school and university. They are still struggling with basic things. Yeah, this is also one of the picture of the journey of a woman where she's going to collect water. There are children and youth collecting water from the river. Yeah, good. Some of the strategies which was proposed by my participants, by Saharia youth, one is traditional practices, community mobilization. So community mobilization, like in olden days, they used to come together for the marriages, for building resources. They had a culture of having a head who can decide like if they want to contribute for something, they could contribute. But these practices are dying now. They have a huge impact of colonization. They were pushed from during British era in India, they were pushed from their forests, so they didn't have access to their forest product or their livelihood. So those systems are dying. New system which they propose, like they can come up with building association. So they use that word association. They might have learned from somewhere. So I just put it there exactly like that. But the idea of association was like coming together. Someone can lead that process, and like their issues can be represented in front of NGOs or like government structure. So that's like they propose a new idea. And the last one was participatory video, because we did participatory video, so they asked me to create a film. I'm not a filmmaker, but I did my best. I did my best. I did compile those videos, and then I took a help of one movie maker too, to like finalize. I managed to do the first cut, which is approved in my PhD, but I'm gonna work more. But that was something they asked me to do, and I did it. And that's my Koha back to them. Okay, I'm not gonna play a video because I don't have a control. I can't click on it. But like, film for advocacy, yeah. I know nobody is going to read my exegesis. People doesn't have time. But at least this is a 20 minutes film which has like the journey that women and children, like how they are like involved in that process. And that film will be used for advocacy, fundraising, and awareness. And I'm going to give that film back. I've already done that. Give back to community, and then I hope their voice will be heard. That's me. Thank you.